NADA, wild.
Vegas knows how to throw an amazing show.
F1s everywhere. We got race cars. We got Lewis Hamilton. We got to stand in the paddock on pit lane where these cars are coming in to do 2-second pit stops.
There's going to be consumers that don't care where the vehicle's made and they just need an affordable vehicle that is cool, and they're going to go ahead and get that. This could push the other OEMs to adjust and be able to compete with these Chinese automakers. So
the biggest theme that we saw in every booth that I attended had this, and it's AI. It's the buzzword.
let's talk about after parties.
Ooh, there are even robots.
The time is now and we're about to get into it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Leadership in the Dealership. I'm your favorite co-host, Danielle Walden. I'm here with my lovely co-host, Phillip Greer. And today we are going to be giving you the recap of NADA 2026, whether you were there in person at the show or you were at home and you were waiting and so ready for our recap. The time is now and we're about to get into it. So before we get into it, this was the very, very first show that Phillip got a chance to attend. So I'm going to kick it over to him so he can give us his first impression and take on the show. Phillip, over to you and say hi.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Danielle. You are the favorite co-host. I will take second spot. I got no problem with that. NADA, wild. You walk in, it's like Emerald Lagasse, bam. Everything you see is over the top and exciting. There's big rafters hanging from the ceiling. I mean, it was pumped up energy for the entirety that we were there. But my biggest, most exciting thing, F1 everywhere. We got race cars. We got Lewis Hamilton. We're able to walk around the paddock. Like, we got to see so much cool stuff because of NADA. And that was the night before it started. So you can imagine what the energy was like when we hit the floor. My take was, this is awesome. Got to come back. Got to do it again. Do it even bigger and better. What about you, Danielle? What did you think?
So for me, this was the fourth NADA that I've had the opportunity to attend, but the only second time that I've been able to go to it in Vegas. And I have to say, hands down, Vegas knows how to throw an amazing show. Last year, attendance was really light because of the weather in New Orleans. And then this time around, it just seemed like everybody was so excited to be back in full effect in person. So the energy was off the chain. That was probably the biggest thing. And I know we're about to dive into a lot more, but first impression was everybody was so happy it was back in a location that could handle the influx of dealers and support everybody. And the energy was just off the chain.
Yeah, 100%. Super cool, super cool. I mean, when we talk about this, what I really want to hear about from your side is, in addition to how exciting it was, what were some of the things that you saw? What did you go to? Where did you hit up that really changed your day, your life, your whole existence?
Yeah, so I had the privilege and opportunity to attend the Women in Automotive Retail event, which was actually on Monday, a day before the official show kicked off. And it was the first time I ever got a chance to go to that event. And I was sitting around essentially the who's who in automotive thought leadership. I was there with many of the WOCAN founders next to them. I was with a lot of really prevalent women in the space. And as I was sitting there surrounded by women from the vendor side and dealers and personnel and allies, it was really interesting to hear some of the pain points that everybody in the room has either experienced in some point in their career or is currently experiencing. So some of the themes that were really brought up that I want to touch on is only 20% of dealership personnel are actually women. And even smaller than that, only between 5 to 8% are general managers. So that event was really to draw awareness to the gaps that still exist and ways to kind of bridge those gaps with things that we could be doing differently or should be doing differently. So some of the things that were raised were maybe from a dealership perspective, having better programs in place or benefits in place when it comes to childcare, more flexibility, ability to actually have parental leave. Many of the women in the room spoke about, in their earlier in their careers, having a baby and having to return back literally within 2 days of having a child. Whereas a lot of us who come from more of the tech background understand that is completely different of what our experience was. So it's just because the automotive world is such a predominantly, commission-based, sales-based world, the thought process around having some of these things in place is just so mind blowing. And that's also made it so a lot of women are rapidly leaving the space when we really would want them to stay in there and be able to progress upward. So those are some of the themes that continue to be spoken about. Lastly, before we pick it something else, Lindsay Shuckus, who is a really cool name, she was the keynote for this event, and she was actually an executive producer for SNL for decades. And she talked. Her big thing was talking about how do you earn trust in the customers that you're working with, or how do you gain trust. And one of the quotes that she said that kind of I resonated with me was, to earn trust, you must be trustworthy. And it's just so true, because when we're in a sales driven industry and, car dealership salespeople do not have the best reputation, being able to let people's guard down and earn trust was something that was really cool hearing her talk about that. And before I give my last point about this event, Phillip, from your standpoint, how do you feel the importance of trust when it comes to sales?
I mean, it's so crazy how it's overlooked all the time. You have the second largest purchase anybody's going to make in their life. They're making it multiple times over the course of their life. You have the opportunity to get them back. We talk about this all the time. But we don't start with trust. We start with speed. We start with how can I get in front of them fastest? How can I get them to see this car and be wowed? But if they don't trust you, you can show all the things you want. It's going to be a terrible experience. So even though that line, when you said it to me, I'm like, seems like common sense. It is not common. And it is something that people are missing all the time. So I love to hear that. I love that it was reiterated. And that trustworthiness allows you to be better at selling. It allows you to be better in the dealership. And it's cool that that's how you kicked off in ADA.
Totally. It was powerful. I think that the biggest aha moment that I had sitting in the room with roughly, I want to say 200 women, all either currently in the dealerships today working, on the ground, or vendors who are supporting these dealerships with different systems. What my biggest aha takeaway moment was, the message and the mission of this event seemed to be, I don't want to say falling on deaf ears, because that's not the best way to describe this, but it almost seemed like the audience did not fit the message. If it were me and I could wave a magic wand and change that event in 2027 when we're in Orlando, I would change that event to be during the actual NADA and have men in the room to be able to hear the feedback, hear the suggestions, hear what's working and what's not, because the audience was 100% women and maybe a handful sprinkle of a few men here or there. It seemed like the people in the room to make the changes necessary for us to see the success weren't there for it.
Right.
So we did
Right.
these round tables. We did all these sessions. They gave us questions, and each, with the questions, we would go around the room and here's the answers. And such great feedback was given, but it's like, we don't want that feedback going into a black hole. How can we take
Right.
that amazing feedback and get it to the people who can actually make the change? So that would be my biggest change if I was, put in power to be able to make this event that much better in 2027. But it was overall a good event, and I was excited to go.
That's
So with
awesome.
that, yeah, it was really cool. And I would definitely go again, but with some tweaks. Okay, so as far as the actual show itself, we definitely dabbled into a ton of themes that we started hearing and experiencing. I would love to hear, Phillip, from your perspective, as if this was your first show and you were talking
Yeah.
to dealers throughout the entire time. What were a couple themes that raised your eyebrow and said, okay, this is what dealers want to talk about?
Yeah. So for me, the biggest theme that we saw, and every booth that I attended had this, and I know that you're going to really touch on this, is AI. It's the buzzword, right? It's like the biggest thing that I saw everywhere, whether it was a CRM provider talking about how AI can get in touch with your customers faster. What we do has AI involved in it to be able to give loans out to more people faster. You had the full Cox Automotive row that had different levels of AI throughout their product offerings. You saw it in the service department when you went to the back, how they were automating what they're doing for your vehicles. There were even robots literally riding around the showroom floor in between people. Like one of my coworkers spoke to a robot on our way from the North Hall into the West Hall. There's like, hey, robot. It's like that crazy that you see this moving, I don't want to say organism because then it gets us a little bit too much into like Terminator, but you see it moving around the floor and it's doing something, it's serving a purpose all the way through the automation that exists inside of your computer, how it's reading and learning. Like it overtook the entire show, to the point where one dealer was like, oh, another AI demo. And I heard it and I was like, yeah, they're everywhere. You can't get away from it, whether you like it or not. That is coming. So that's one of the biggest things that I saw that existed. The other thing that I noticed that dealers really talked about was your location and approach to what they need. So instead of just pitching a deal or something, which there were a couple of salespeople from other companies that were like, hey, have you heard this? It's like that scene from How I Met Your Mother. It's like, hey, have you met Ted? Nobody really wants that. Talk to them about where they feel pain points. So when I was walking around talking to some of the dealers, they were saying things about how they're always looking for more lenders, but they don't think that lenders really understand their pain. And so I led with the question, what are the top 3 pain points that you have in the automotive space? And what would you like to change about them? Not even just from lending, but that came up. How rapidly we can get in front of our customers, where we're located, et cetera. The other thing was location, not only of our booth, but of people. So depending on where they were in the country, influenced what they were looking for at an ADA. So for us, the dealers who we were talking to are people who are having a little bit more difficulty with maybe college buyers, first-time buyers, those people who might have great credit, but they don't have it established yet. And they're looking for options for who they can lend to, because some of the big names that they've used can't offer that up to them. And then it's like, oh, this is a no-brainer. Come over and talk to us. But hearing that from a dealer's perspective, based on where they're located in the country, dictates what they're looking for inside of the show, was really cool. Those are probably my 2 biggest ones.
Okay. I'm in agreement with you. I was hearing a lot of the same things on the floor. To your point, like the use of AI was everywhere, so much so that it was table stakes. It was nothing unique about AI. Now, last year, the year before, we used to say things like, hey, have you heard of ChatGPT? And like a handful of people in the room would raise their hand. From last year to this year, that's been completely changed. And now every single vendor that you spoke with already is leading with that. So dealers were almost, I guess, over it at this point. They're like, okay, beyond the AI, what is it gonna do for me? And a quote that I heard, through and through was like, I don't need more systems and more tech stack doing things. I want my systems to talk to each other better. I want better integrations. I want things to be faster. And that kind of made me smile because, what we're doing at Upstart and how we've been impacting dealers, it was like an easy segue with all of our conversations. And it almost was like too good to be true how we were getting teed up. It's like every dealer we talked to, we're like, man, we just want to talk to lenders. We're like, really? Are you familiar with what we're doing? So that was, I couldn't have asked for that to be better. The second thing that I wanted to touch on was a quote that our good friend over at Carter's Automotive Group, Liza Borges, who's been a guest on the show, she gave, which was really, really interesting to hear, and she said that AI is not a buzz. It went from being a cool buzzword to being like it's everywhere, and it's more of a strategy conversation than a tool conversation. So as you're
Right.
looking at your dealership and what you have going on, think about how AI could be leveraged from the strategy component versus just let me add this tool because it has AI in it. That's not going to set you up for success. So partnering with vendors who offer the strategy to be able to move the needle is going to make the difference for you. So that to me was kind of the biggest thing. Second thing I'm going to touch on, which I didn't hear a ton directly from the dealers I spoke with, but I do know that this came up in different keynotes and sessions that were happening, was around the Chinese automakers. So Phillip, it's interesting because there is a little bit of a debate going on at NADA. Is like, is it a good thing if Chinese automakers are going to now be available to be sold in the United States? And where does that fall? It's like half the room is like, I like it. It's going to improve affordability. The other half is like, what about long term? Like, what does that mean for everything else? So I'm curious your take on that before we pivot.
Now, when we did our predictions for 2026, one of the things that I said was a Chinese automobile manufacturer will be sold in the United States. And I thought I was crazy when I said it. The fact that it made it into NADA is crazy. The other fact is it's already in Canada, so they've invested in this. Can we get these other vehicles into the Canadian marketplace? And as you know, it's not that far away from us. So it's really something that people need to be taking seriously, and it's something that's coming. Just like any other market, right? There's a lot of, oh, I live here, I want it to be made here, made in America sentiment, which I completely agree with, right? I want to support my fellow countrymen. The problem is we don't have as much focus on cool features, interactions, ease of production, and speed that as we need to be able to combat this. So instead of running from what's coming, because make no mistake, it is coming, how do we advance our tech? How do we make it so that our vehicles are more affordable? How do we source parts, et cetera, should be the questions that we're asking. We can't just live in the fear and be reactive. We need to be proactive. So the fact that it came up in an ADA tells you I may not have been 100% right about when it happens because we haven't seen it here yet, but it's on more people's minds than we originally thought. The other thing is, let's get out ahead of it, right? It does increase competition. Ideally, if I see one of these vehicles roll in to down the street from me, I'm going to look at it and figure out where I can go and do some more research and see it. And if I'm a manufacturer, I'm going to say, how do I combat that and make sure that I'm giving my customers the best bang for their buck? And that's something that dealers, customers should really take away from it. This brings in the trust aspect. If you have these people who have this anti-Chinese import sentiment that are in your customer base, are you engaging them appropriately? Are you using AI to talk about your new models? What are you saying to say, hey, this is what we do to compete with it? And are you pushing that feedback back up the chain to the OEM to say, we need products that compete with this and we need it soon? Because you can lose the market share if you're not careful, but you don't have to. But it's wild to think that these cars are going to be coming to America. I'm not saying that I will go and buy one or anything like that, but I will test drive it. I want to see what it does. And if it's super cool, this is my bottom line dollar. Every dollar that I have counts. And if this gets more features, more affordability for my family, then you have to take notice. Then you have to be like, okay, this is something that's very serious. I saw one of these that was this, we're going to talk about the pivot from doing full electric vehicles to this hybrid model where it has a hybrid that powers the battery. I've already seen that come out of China, and they're getting up to like 700 miles. And you can sit in the back seat and lay down. Like, why not? That's what I want. I want something comfy, put my feet up, plantar fasciitis, all that nonsense. If that car can do it, then it becomes something you really think about. And it's not that crazily overpriced. So it's a good reset for the market. It may be scary for a time, but I am confident we can overcome any of this push. But it also drives the prices down, increasing the affordability for the customer, increasing how manufacturers are producing, and hopefully allowing them to be bulletproof as they move into the future too.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I have a friend, his name's Ben Hadley. He's been in the industry for a long time, and he actually visited I think it's BID. Is it BYD? Is that the name? How you pronounce it? Okay. So he visited a BID dealership. I think it was in Puerto Rico, or it wasn't in the US. And he said it was the coolest experience that he had, seeing these vehicles and how techy they are, but so affordable. So two things could happen with this. The first thing is there's going to be consumers that don't care where the vehicle's made, and they just need an affordable vehicle that is cool, and they're going to go ahead and get that. And the second thing that could happen is this could push the other OEMs to adjust and be able to compete with these Chinese automakers. So I found that to be really, really interesting, and a good segue into the next theme that I was hearing. And I spoke to probably 5 different dealers that raised this. These were all Stellantis dealers. So Stellantis has been in the news for a lot of different things, and dealers have been very vocal about their sentiments around some of the decisions that are being made with the brand and some of the pushing that the brand has done when it comes to EVs, and how the dealer body almost feels that they're not listening to them. So in the few dealers that I did speak to that were principals of multiple Stellantis stores, they were looking forward to that meeting that they had at NADA where they could speak to Stellantis directly, belly to belly. And they wanted to raise some of the feedback that they had. But, with Stellantis making some pivots, I don't know if you're aware, Phillip, but they're going to shift $22.3 billion of spend that was going to be allocated towards EVs and pivot those into a different direction, because they're hearing that their marketplace is not ready to go all in full throttle. So that was interesting. I'm curious your perspective, because you're such a car guy and you're in there with these brands. What have you been hearing about Stellantis and some of the changes that they've been making with their EV strategy?
Yeah, so they went really heavy in the EV conversation at the beginning. They waited the longest of any of the manufacturers to roll out their EVs, right? So that platform that they were going to come out with that was modular, they took longer than everybody else. The downside is dealers didn't know what to expect. They were in flux. Yes, it's coming. It's going to be here soon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The upside is they can react faster because they haven't poured all this investment directly into manufacturing these EVs. Their current mode is to go, okay, people see these EVs. but they don't necessarily want to be scared of driving. One of the things that you see is like Scout Motors. They came out with 2 different models, and they have the possibility of a gas engine at some point in the future. Everybody who pre-ordered was like, yeah, I want a gas engine with it. The question becoming, why? Why do they want that gas engine? And the answer is they want it so that they can always be powered up with the infrastructure that we have and still feel like they're taking care of the environment. Now, for Stellantis, how that's good news is they have these REEVs or REEVs, which are range extended electric vehicles. The Ram Charger, which is the one that's supposed to be coming out soon, they had such a cool rollout with their new electric Ram back in 2023, I believe it was. Like I don't pre-order a lot of stuff, but I was going to pre-order that one. And then they canned the whole concept and they made it a regular Ram pickup truck that they electrified, which still is cool, but it's not as cool. But now what they're doing is they've put in a gasoline power plant, 92 kilowatt hour battery. You're never going to run off of your gas engine, even though it's in your vehicle. That works by saying, hey, it's always powering the battery as this giant generator and pushing that power in, and you're always running in electric mode. That is really cool because you can get 690 miles of range. The problem is it's not here. I haven't seen one. I haven't been able to touch one, sit in one. So I always ask the question, Stellantis, you got great ideas. You got big dreams. Let's get it on the road. And that's what the dealers are talking about. They're like, okay, you've pivoted 5 times. Think about the Hemi. We went from a Hemi, we went into an inline-6 Hurricane engine with better output, less issues. But then people said they wanted their Hemi back. And so what did Ram do? They scrapped the whole project for developing a set of engines and went back to a Hemi. Now, is that a good business plan? Maybe for the short term. But if it's long term, we're talking about now dealers have another headache. Maybe I've retooled my whole service department for this. Maybe I've retooled my entire sales floor for this. Now we're switching engines. Now I got to train all my salespeople on a Hemi again. It's not good to have this whiplash. And we're hearing it from dealers. We signed up a dealer who's a CDJR dealer, and they explained to me the same thing. They're super frustrated. They don't like the engine pivot. They were just getting in their groove. They could talk about it, how they could sell it. Now they got to go back to something that is technically an antiquated product and sell it because it's louder. Stellantis cannot keep doing this to its dealers because all those points are going to get tired of it. And when you lose the audience, when you lose the people who are selling your product, you're going to lose your sales altogether, and they're not coming back. So as another one of these large American brands, American is in quotes because technically it's owned by Fiat Chrysler America for a while, then Fiat, now Stellantis, where they have this huge conglomerate. They're kind of out of touch with what the buyers here want, and they're running into that issue. They arguably have the prettiest pickup truck on the market, which aren't things you would normally say about your pickup truck, but it is a gorgeous vehicle. But it's not selling because it didn't capture the market share. It's not selling because the other people who are in the buying area didn't understand why you pivoted to the Hurricane engine, and you didn't do a great job explaining it. And that starts with your dealers. These are the people who are telling you this that you didn't listen to. So Stellantis has their work cut out for them. To hear that they're moving $22.3 billion now after they just had an entire project for their entire product line blow up and they're changing it, it signals problems. I am not an economic specialist, but if you said, Phillip, I need $22.3 billion from your pocket, I'm not going to tell you where it's going to go. You're not going to be able to see it for a while. I would tell you to get out of my house, right? Like that is a pretty wild thing to say. So it's going to be a weird one. The product mix will be good. Obviously, I'm a Mopar guy. We talked about it with my Pacifica, but this seems like it could be problems for them for long term and short term.
Yeah, I mean, with all of these changes going on, I mean, it gave me whiplash just hearing you talk about the history of what's been going on with them. I think that they're in need of a new partnership with either a prominent athlete. Maybe they need to have some sort of campaign. They need to get
Yeah.
their customer base together again. And
Yeah.
speaking of partnerships and cool things, this was the first NADA that they did an F1 themed opening ceremony. And I love that my co-host Phillip Greer is probably the biggest F1 fan that I've ever met outside of my dad, who's a huge F1 fan. And I have to ask you, Phillip, with the dealers being really into F1, and even if you're like myself, I'm not a big F1 fan, but I respect it. I think it's cool. Like you can't watch F1 or see what goes into making these vehicles or them traveling all over the world and not have a little bit of respect for it. So that was really cool for me. I think it's going to be hard for NADA to top this opening ceremony in future years because of
Yeah.
how cool it was. What was your favorite part about the opening ceremony that we got to attend together?
Look, Danielle, you were there. You saw me when I walked through that room of all of those classic F1 cars. I was spouting off facts about the V10 engine. I'm walking by looking at it, fanboying out, getting to see all of the helmets that Lewis Hamilton had, getting to look at him and like stand next to him, and the virtual thing was super tight. But the coolest thing is we got to stand in the paddock on pit lane where these cars are coming in to do 2-second pit stops. And we got to see everybody's face and what they're set up like. And you got to be a part of the action under the lights. Fortunately, no super fast cars racing by to try and hurt us. That was absolutely the coolest thing. And when you're a little child inside like me, inside of a very giant child, which is what I am, like it spoke to every aspect of my car being. It had something for everyone you could relate to. If you're an F1 fan, if you just wanted to go up and talk business, there was a spot for that. If you wanted to race a car, you wanted to race a simulator, you wanted to go in and see how they produce them, make your own livery. It was open to everybody. And that was the best partnership I think you could ever have. I don't even know next year, I don't even know if the mouse comes and walks through the whole convention, if that will be as cool as the F1 thing, right? Orlando is awesome. But that F1 opening party was so cool. Even when we were standing at our booth and they walked through the opening doors, they had F1 themed racing in, right? People were dressed up. They had the race flag, they had the finish flag, all of that, and they got it kicked off that way. So really awesome collaboration. If you have not been to Vegas to see this F1 paddock, you definitely should. Buy some merch, see the history of it. I mean, super, super awesome. And you have these people in the car business who like to talk cars. Not everybody is a big gearhead. I get that. But when they are, it just loosens everybody up. We're ready to chat. We're ready to get involved. We're talking about our favorite moments. And, you know, I got stories for days. So I went into my stories about F1 stuff. And it was an easy way to engage. It kind of let the guard down. And it was a great way to break the tension and ice for everybody. And then we even ran into people the next day that we had seen at the gathering. And they were like, oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Let's talk, chat, all that stuff. And you already knew them. So it was awesome. It was awesome. I cannot speak to that enough. And I'm super grateful that I got to experience it on behalf of an ADA. What about you? What did you think of it?
I was pleasantly surprised because I didn't have a lot of expectations going in. I figured it was just going to be at where the race took place, but I didn't understand that we'd get to go through all of the different installations. And, you know, at one point I was putting on Lewis Hamilton's helmet, and then I got to like dance, and then he was dancing as me. That was really cool. We missed being able to do the pit stop reenactment, but I always love that because it's so fast and how they do that. So overall, great job, NADA, for doing this as the opening ceremony. Honestly, I think some of the best networking happened at this event because, like you said, Phillip, people's guard is down, they're open, and they're ready to talk. So we met a lot of amazing dealers at that event.
Yeah.
So speaking of some fun topics that we're about to get into, are you ready to do what's hot and what's not?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, let's do all the good stuff first. So, in your opinion, Phillip, and then I'll give you mine. Which booth was the coolest and most creative of all the ones that you had the chance to see at NADA 2026?
Are we able to vote for ourselves or no?
You can, and then you can give a secondary.
Okay, cool. I think from the perspective of one of the coolest features, I would go with our booth. We had that giant wall that was fully electronic and it had different graphics running over it. I think it was like 40 feet long, 20 feet tall. It was awesome to see. And we got a lot of compliments on it overall because we were one of one that had something like that there. So by all means, being able to stand out plus being at the entrance was great. Now that I've given a shout out to us, my favorite booth, because you know, the speaker in me, the presenter in me, just a yapper, right? I'm just a yapping machine. When I went by, honestly, DriveCentric's booth and they had full presentations going on, right? And they had people who are in suits up there talking about what their product did, giving a demo, nice seating for people. That was a game changer in what I've seen. So I enjoyed getting to experience that and getting to say, oh, wow, they really, not even a risk, but they really took what they were good at. They took what they knew and they put it on stage in front of everybody else and said, we dare you to walk past it without wanting to see what's happening here. We have a crowd of people sitting down. I've got a guy with coiffed hair who's going through his whole demo, which if I'm the guy who does the demo next year, I will not have coiffed hair no matter how much you try, okay? But it was super interesting to the point where somebody who's been in CRM, been in the car business for forever, doesn't really need to know that much more about it. I stopped and I was like, I don't know what they're talking about over there. And if you can get my interest piqued, somebody who's really just about themselves, that's impressive, right? And so that is what I saw was really cool. So yeah, I would go those top two. And now we'll ask you, because I could keep going and I can't. I'm not allowed to.
Okay. I am surprised that we are going to be voting for the same people here. So I did want to give ourselves a shout out, not because bigger is better, but because location is everything. And I love the fact that our booth, the Upstart booth, was right smack dab when you walked into the place. And it was in your face. And it was like, hello, what's that teal thing over there? It's us. So I loved that about our booth. And as I walked the floor, I didn't get to do it a bunch. And usually every year I'll kind of do a full lap around everything. I didn't get to do a full lap. I only did like one hallway. And the usual suspects were always, big and in your face, the Techions and the Cox hallways of the world. Like they were still beautiful and big. But to Philip's point, what did stand out to me, like he said, was Drive Centric. Hats off to you for not only having that seating to be able to have people sit and captively watch whatever you're presenting. Something about when somebody's on a stage, they're speaking, they're prominent, they have presence, it makes people want to see what's going on. And you were able to capture that audience there well enough, and you were confident enough in what you're presenting to be able to put it on a huge screen and not be concerned. A lot of these companies, they want to demo you over here in the corner. So it's just, one-on-one. They were like, here, it's for everybody. Everybody can see it. Everybody can see what we're doing. So I really enjoyed that because like Phillip said, we love when a booth understands the power of using speakers. So
Yep.
kudos to them for that. Now,
Yeah.
pivoting, let's talk about after parties. So, I want to know from your perspective, Phillip, which was your favorite after party over the course of the 3 days that either you got to experience or you heard about?
So, my favorite that I experienced, I'm going to go with, and this is a common theme you'll see with me, was the Solera after party at the F1 arcade. They rented out the whole joint. You got to race all the sims, unlimited, had great drinks, great camaraderie, talked to a lot of people, and we talked about everything. But honestly, I mean, it was just such a cool vibe and it was still intimate. One of the things about the after parties for me, and I know it's going to sound weird when they get too large, I kind of lose my ability to interact. Then I got to scream at you to network with you. And while it may be awesome to see, and I heard about the one where Nellie's out there, Fat Joe's out there, it's too much. And my real goal is to get to know these dealers and talk to them and get to talk to people at other vendors who we might be able to partner with. So I love the balance they struck. Not too flashy, still really cool, still super hype. And then after it was done, you could walk through all of the rest of Caesars and still see everything. So great location, great party, good message, and exclusive. Those all made it a really nice after party for me personally. What about you? Where was your head at for that?
So this year, 2026, did not physically attend any after parties. I was invited though, but I did not attend any after parties myself. But from what I heard and talking to dealers that did get to go, they did shout out Dave Canton's annual NADA celebration, which was at the Fontainebleau, which I'm very familiar with because they have one here in Miami, but they just recently opened one up in Las Vegas, and it was at Live Nightclub, which is what you just spoke about. It was Nelly, Fat Joe, and Rev Run. The reason why I wanted to highlight this being the best after party, because the dealers that went to this after party clearly understand good music. So I would like to network with anybody who likes to enjoy all of Nelly's top hits and Fat Joe and Lean Back and all the good stuff. So I would post up outside of there so I could catch dealers on the way in and talk with them and say, hey, why are you excited about hearing from Nelly? Talk to me about your childhood. No, it would have been good. And I know in the past, Phillip, we've sang karaoke a couple times to some of these artists. So we've had a good time there. And I did hear really good things. So that one was the one that I heard the most about out of all the ones that happened. So no pressure in Orlando. Maybe they can bring out some really cool musical acts, but anytime you can get an artist that pulls people together and it makes them think about and reminisce about their high school days or college days, depending on how old you are, it's always a good scene. So that was my favorite from the ones that I heard about.
What would you say, just like a few bonuses? I know that we are coming up to the end of this awesome recap, but like, what would you say the word or phrase that you heard the most was at NADA this year?
Ooh, the word or phrase that I heard the most. ChatGPT, unfortunately.
ChatGPT. I mean, 100%.
Like anytime somebody was on the NADA live stage, which was the stage, like when you first come into the expo, or not the expo, like when you first come into the doors and you're trying to figure out where to go, they kept using the buzzwords and trying to like grab people with that. That's the word that I heard the most. Phillip, what about you? What did you hear the most?
It was trust. Honestly, it kept coming back to that. When we would hear the presentations, they would talk through how you can be more trustworthy. Your comment that you brought up at the beginning, everybody was discussing that, right? Even the dealers who came up to talk about lending, they've lost trust in what their lender said they would provide for them. So they want to be able to believe in it. And I had one lender, he asked me this, one gentleman, he said, but can we trust that what you say here is true? And I'm like, absolutely. I install it, I work with it, et cetera. You can definitely trust it. And they asked me point blank, they don't want to waste their time. They want to feel like they can trust a partner in this business. So more than just selling them as a number, can I become a long-term customer, a long-term client with you is what they wanted more than anything else.
Totally. I think that trust is should be the theme as we leave NADA 2026. People are not in a position where basically there's so much information out there that you have to be open and honest and transparent about what you're saying and what you're putting your name behind. And I know for the two of us, we do this podcast, but we are powered by Upstart and we're really proud of what we've been able to do. And the market is signaling that they're liking it as well. So if this is intriguing to you, I think Phillip is going to close us out because this was a really fun episode. I can't wait for NADA 2027 in Orlando.
100%, 100%. If this is the stuff that you like, if you're worried or excited about Chinese cars being sold in America next year, if you want to hear any more of these hot takes about what happens with this event and other events that are coming, please make sure you like, follow, subscribe. We would love to have you as a listener, and we'll have plenty more great content coming your way soon. Thank you so much for taking the time to rock with us, and we'll talk to you next time.